She was only 23 years old, filled with dreams of becoming a writer, when she set out to see the world on her own terms. To her family, she was vibrant and independent. To strangers, she was just another traveler exploring in a new city. But to those who remember her now, she is the young woman who walked in New Orleans in January of 1994 and never came back. Ylenia Carrisi's disappearance is not just a headline from the past, it's a wound that has lingered for decades. Despite her well-known family and the attention her case drew, the truth about what happened in those final days remains just out of reach. How could someone so full of life vanish in plain sight, in a city alive with people and sound, leaving only questions behind? And what does her story reveal about the fragile line between independence and danger when someone chooses to follow their own path? This is the haunting mystery of Ylenia Carrisi. Join me for another strange, odd, and mysterious story here at Odd Mystery Stories. Ylenia Carrisi grew up in the public eye as the eldest child of Italian entertainers Bano and Romina Power. Her maternal grandparents were American actor Tyrone Power and Mexican actress Linda Christian, so fame surrounded her from childhood. Despite that, she cultivated a private creative life, more interested in reading and writing than in performing. Friends and family described her as adventurous and intellectually curious, traits that showed early and never really faded. By her early 20s, she leaned into that curiosity. She studied literature in London and talked seriously about becoming a novelist. That ambition paired naturally with solo travel. She kept journals, observed people closely, and chased places that felt culturally dense and a little off the well-trodden path. Those choices weren't impulsive as much as intentional. Travel, for her, was part of the writing life she imagined. Her family's public profile often hid how independent she was in private. She was fluent in English and used that ease to move through international spaces comfortably. The independence also meant she preferred making her own plans and paying her own way, something that later appears in records noting that her travel documents and notebooks were important to her routine. The image that emerges is that of a 23-year-old who valued autonomy, creativity, and movement, someone equally at home with a book as with a boarding pass. As she prepared for longer periods of travel, she set her sights on the Americas. She spent time in Central America before the winter holidays of 1993 and set out towards the United States. To those who knew her, this was consistent with her broader pattern: new cities, new notes, new scenes to observe. It wasn't escapism, it was with purpose. That framing matters because it sets out who she was: self-directed, writerly, unafraid of unfamiliar places, before any discussion of what happened later. When Ylenia arrived in New Orleans in late September of 1993, she was carrying the same sense of independence that had guided much of her adult life. She checked into the Ledale Hotel in the French Quarter, a modest place known more for its location than its comforts. To her, it was just another stop on her journey. She wrote, observed, and moved through the city like she had in so many others before this one. But this city would be her last known destination. During her stay, she was often seen in the company of a street musician named Alexander Masakela, also known as Masakela, a man decades older than her. He was known locally as a charismatic but troubled figure. His music drew people in, but his personal life was far more complicated. Hotel staff and others later confirmed that the two were spending considerable time together, though the nature of their relationship was never entirely clear. On the evening of January 6, 1994, Ylenia made her last confirmed phone call. She spoke with her father, Bano, telling him,
"Don't worry about me. I'm fine. I'll call you in a few days."
Those words, seemingly casual, would be the last her family ever heard from her. After that night, reports grew murky. A security guard later told police that he had seen Ylenia walking along the Mississippi River near the Aquarium of the Americas. He claimed she said something chilling, and that the river belongs to me before disappearing into the night. But no one else came forward to confirm his account, and no body was ever recovered from the river. Her belongings, passport, travel journal, and clothes were left behind at the hotel. To her family, this detail made the idea of her leaving voluntarily difficult to accept. For someone so independent, those items were essential. Abandoning them didn't align with the young woman they knew. From that moment, Ylenia Carrisi was gone. No witnesses came forward with certainty. No evidence tied her to a clear fate. Just a sudden absence in a city that had no shortage of eyes and ears. This leaves us with the unshakable question: how could someone so visible in such a public place disappear without leaving behind even the smallest trace? When word of Ylenia's disappearance reached her family, shock quickly turned into urgency. Her parents, Bano and Romina Power, flew to the United States within days, desperate for answers. The family's fame ensured widespread media attention, but despite the coverage, concrete leads were painfully scarce. New Orleans police launched an investigation, but the early stages left the family frustrated. Officers questioned Alexander Masakela, the street musician she had been seen with, but without evidence of foul play, he was released. He insisted Ylenia had been alive the last time he saw her. For investigators, there was no proof to contradict him. The search soon turned towards the Mississippi River. Boats and divers combed the waters near where the security guard claimed to have seen her. If she had entered the river, currents would have swept her downstream within minutes. But no body surfaced, and no remains were ever found. Authorities in Louisiana pointed to the river as the most likely explanation, but the absence of physical evidence meant this theory could never be confirmed. Back in Italy, the disappearance dominated headlines. International journalists flocked to New Orleans, covering every whisper of the investigation. Yet, with each passing day, the trail grew colder. Hotel staff confirmed her belongings remained untouched, a haunting reminder that she hadn't packed up or planned to leave quietly. Her family refused to give up. Romina Power, in particular, continued to push for answers, expressing deep doubts about the river theory. To her, the lack of recovery was significant. A body almost always surfaces eventually, she argued, and until then, she believed her daughter might still be alive. But the official search wound down within weeks. For police, there was no suspects, no confirmed sightings, and no hard evidence. For her family, there was only silence, a silence that stretched on for months, then years. The search for Ylenia ended in official files, but for those who loved her, it never truly ended. And the haunting absence leaves us wondering, when authorities close a file without resolution, what truths are left behind, hidden in plain sight? From the very beginning, the Mississippi River loomed over Ylenia's disappearance. The guard's statement about seeing her near the Aquarium of the Americas was one of the few concrete claims police had to work with. According to his account, she seemed calm, almost at peace, as she gazed at the water. Then he recalled her saying something strange: "The river belongs to me." Those words, whether remembered exactly or misinterpreted, became central to the idea that she entered the Mississippi on her own. The river itself is unforgiving. Strong currents, debris, and undertows can carry a person away in seconds. Law enforcement argued that if she had gone into the water that night, her body could have been swept downstream, never to be recovered. For police in New Orleans, this explanation felt plausible, even likely. But then there was always a complication. Bodies often resurface eventually, even in the Mississippi. Divers and boats searched extensively in the days after her disappearance, yet nothing was found. No clothes, no personal items, no trace at all. For Ylenia's family, this absence mattered. Her mother, Romina, had often pointed to this detail as the reason why she never has fully accepted the river theory. Without a body recovery, it remains a possibility, not a certainty. The river explanation also leaves questions of its own. If Ylenia truly went into the water, was it by choice or was it an accident? Did she slip in the dark, misjudge the danger, or deliberately step forward? Police could not answer these questions, leaving only speculation. For some, the simplicity of this theory is what makes it compelling. A young woman, alone at night in a strange city, drawn to the power of the river and tragically lost to its currents. For others, it feels incomplete, too neat for a disappearance that has left decades of pain and doubt. And that's where the haunting question lingers. If the river really claimed Ylenia, why has it never given her back? Among the people Ylenia spent time with in New Orleans, one name appears again and again: Alexander Masakela. He was a 54-year-old street musician known for his saxophone and for drifting through the French Quarter. Charismatic but unstable, he lived a transient lifestyle, surviving on the margins of the city's energy. Witnesses at the Liddell Hotel confirmed that Ylenia and Masakela had been together often in the days before she vanished. Some described them as friends, others suggested a deeper connection. What is certain is that he was one of the last people to see her alive. For that reason, suspicion naturally fell on him. Police questioned Masakela after her disappearance. He admitted knowing her but denied any involvement. He said she was alive the last time he saw her. Without evidence tying him to a crime, no eyewitnesses, no forensic proof, he was released. Still, doubts lingered. Could a much older man with a troubled history have played a role in her fate? According to those doubts, Masakela's past raised concerns. Records show he had been arrested on charges related to fraud and questionable dealings in other cities. His character was far from spotless, and many wondered if Ylenia, trusting and adventurous, might have been vulnerable to his company. For her family, especially for her father, the association with Masakela was deeply troubling. Bano openly voiced his belief that this man might have been connected to Ylenia's disappearance. To him, the river theory was far less convincing than the idea that foul play, or at the very least, harmful influence, had drawn her into danger. Yet, despite suspicions, the investigation never produced evidence to link Masakela directly to Ylenia's fate. He eventually left New Orleans and faded from the case, but his name remains tied to the mystery. To this day, some view him as the central figure who may hold the answers. So hear what's certain about Alexander Masakela. In 1994, he was questioned, briefly jailed on an unrelated allegation that was dropped, and reportedly tried to use Ylenia's unsigned traveler's checks, yet no evidence ever tied him to her disappearance. Since then, nothing new has surfaced to change that. What's also true is that if he is alive today, he would likely be in his late 80s. There's no confirmed record of his death and no verified recent public trace. So it's reasonable to presume he's elderly and living quietly far from the spotlight. Whether he holds answers that never made it into a police file remains unknown. And to this day, no verified public records confirm where Alexander Masakela is now. Even if he is still alive, his trail fades after the mid-1990s, leaving only questions about what he may have known. Beyond the river and Masakela, other theories have lingered in the shadows of Ylenia's disappearance. Each one adds complexity, but none have been proven. Some believe Ylenia may have fallen victim to abduction. New Orleans in the 1990s was a city with both vibrancy and crime. A young woman traveling alone, even one as independent as Ylenia, could have been vulnerable. Advocates of this theory point to the fact that her belongings were left untouched. If she had been lured away suddenly or forced into a situation against her will, it could explain why nothing was taken. Yet, no ransom calls, no demands, and no credible sightings have ever surfaced. Another possibility, though painful for her family, is that Ylenia may have chosen to disappear. She was deeply independent, drawn to adventure, and fascinated by writing and new cultures. Could she have decided to cut ties and start over? Some have speculated that her words to her father, "Don't worry about me, I'm fine," hinted at such intentions. But those close to her doubt this. They argue that she was too close to her family and too rooted in her passion for literature to abandon her life so abruptly. A more extreme variation suggests she may have slipped into a hidden community, perhaps with someone she met along her travels. Over the years, unconfirmed reports of possible sightings have trickled in from Central and South America. None have ever been verified. For her mother, Romina, these rumors provided hope. She has long held the belief that her daughter could still be alive, somewhere far from the riverbanks of New Orleans. Each of these theories carries emotional weight, especially for those left behind. Abduction leaves the ache of injustice. Voluntary disappearance leaves the sting of abandonment. And the possibility of a hidden new life carries both hope and heartbreak. What keeps these stories alive is the absence of proof. Without a body, without solid evidence, every possibility remains open. And perhaps that is the cruelest part of Ylenia's story, the unknown, suspended between hope and despair. More than 3 decades have passed since Ylenia Carrisi vanished, yet her story continues to echo with unanswered questions. Was she swept away by the Mississippi River, as authorities have suggested? Did she fall under the influence, or perhaps into the danger, of Alexander Masakela? Or was her disappearance tied to something more elusive, abduction? Or a choice to start over somewhere far from home? For her father, Albano, the loss hardened into acceptance over the years. In 2014, he went so far as to have Ylenia declared legally dead, convinced that the river had claimed her. For her mother, Romina Power, hope has never fully faded. She has continued to speak of Ylenia as though she might still be alive, holding on to the possibility that her daughter could have found a life elsewhere, unseen but not forgotten. Their opposing views reflect the cruel divide that uncertainty leaves in a family, acceptance on one side and hope on the other. And so the case remains unresolved. Ylenia was a daughter, a sister, a writer in the making, and a young woman with a spirit too strong to be forgotten. Her story isn't just about disappearance, it's about the fragility of independence, the dangers that could hide in unfamiliar places, and the silence that lingers when answers never come. And perhaps what makes Ylenia's case even more haunting is this reminder: no matter your status, wealth, or power, tragedy doesn't discriminate. Ylenia came from a family of music icons and Hollywood roots, surrounded by fame and privilege. But even with that visibility, her disappearance remains unsolved. Her parents, like so many other families who have lost someone to mystery, are left without answers. In the end, what lingers is not certainty, but memory, a reminder that some stories remain suspended between hope and sorrow, waiting for the day when the silence finally breaks. Hey, thanks for watching my video. My name is Vince. If you found this story interesting, hit the like button. It lets me know you'd like more mysteries like this. If you haven't already done so, make sure to subscribe so you won't miss the next case I cover. Before you go, don't stop here. You should see other videos from my channel on your screen right now. Just click one and keep the mystery going. Each case opens new questions, new theories, and new twists worth exploring. Thanks again for spending your time with me today. The next mystery is just a short time away.